Showing on Law Weekly today, a chat with one of the presidential candidates for the Nigerian Bar Association elections, Dele Adesina SAN. We talk about his vision for the bar, his adoption by the Egbe Amofin, and so much more. We also have our weekly recap of the top trending stories from the courtrooms. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Shola Sheyeli. We begin a series of interesting conversations with the presidential candidates of the Nigerian Bar Association elections, which shall be conducted by e-voting commencing from midnight on the 24th of July to 11:59 p.m. on the 25th of July 2020. Today, I talked to Dele Adesina SAN, popularly referred to as Dasan by his friends and supporters. A graduate of the University of Ife, as it was then called, Mr. Adesina was called to the bar in 1982. He took silk in 2007 and has practiced law for about 38 years. I'll tell you more about him a little later on in the program, but let's go straight away to our chat. A lot of lawyers and non-lawyers believe that the NBA is only active during its annual general conference and perhaps during its elections. Such people argue that the bar is not proactively speaking up about many issues plaguing the country. What does Mr. Adesina think? Does he agree? This was the starting point of my conversation with him.
Those who have this opinion, I believe they are not wrong. Some of us have been very actively involved in the affairs of the bar for over 30 years. And so the bar has gone through a lot of trajectory from one state to the other. Within the recent years, we even amended our motto under the presidency of Olisa Agbakoba, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, to mean promoting the rule of law. There are two fundamental responsibilities that the Bar Association of any nation must shoulder and pursue pragmatically and proactively. One is what I call the corporate social responsibility of the association to the public. And this is where the complaints is coming from. There is also the membership responsibility of the association to its members. These two are very, very distinct, clear, but they must go together. Now, if you pursue one to the exclusion of the other, you are not balanced. There are so many people who believe that issues have cropped up in the past, which the association ought to have confronted in the last couple of years,
yes.
4, 5, 6 years.
Yes.
And we either did not confront them frontally, or we confronted them somehow without the members of the public being satisfied. The public must be defended by the Bar Association. How do you defend the public? Is by proactively defending the cause of the rule of law and due process, which to me is the A, B, C, and X, Y, Z of the legal profession. Due process. Where due process is not followed, the bar must talk. Where rule of law is abridged, the bar must talk.
So where do you place the fault for the bar not taking the position that it should, speaking out against the ills in the society, championing the rule of law, some of these things that you've told us? Is it a problem of leadership? Is it followership? Where has the fault been?
You see, I would not like to place fault here. I would like to say that capacity, competence, capability, conviction of courage are the things we have to look at. And if we have a round peg in the round hole to champion this, you understand, I think the situation may be better. Within the last couple of years, we have had leadership that has looked more into the affairs of the association from business point of view with regards to membership of the association. Right? And again, the school of thought of each leadership also plays a big role here. Are you from a sociological school of jurisprudence by which you believe that the law must be for the advancement of the society? Or are you from a theory or theoretical schools of thought, in which case law as it is, and so on and so forth? So this now narrows down to issue of individuality of leadership, and then the prioritization of what the leadership wants to pursue. And that is where I come in.
So if you become president of the bar, what are you going to do differently? Because there are also people who have said, we now have bodies like the Body of Senior Advocates of Nigeria speaking. We have the Justice Reform Project, because the leadership of the NBA is not filling that vacuum. So we have so many other bodies that are now speaking out on behalf of the bar and the bench. If you become president of the NBA, what are you going to do differently?
Whether the platform or Body of Senior Advocates of Nigeria, or the Plaintiff of Justice Reform Group, or Law Officers Association of Nigeria, or Law Teachers Association of Nigeria, or whatever platform, they are supposed to be under the big umbrella of Nigerian Bar Association. All right? And I am going to do things differently. One will not suffer from the other, but I will give priority attention to the corporate responsibility of the association to members of the public. We will look at the lawmaking process. We will look at the state of rule of law in Nigeria. We will look at the independence of the lawyers and the judges themselves, independence of the lawyers to take on the case that they wish to take, independence of the judges to decide judgment without fear or favor, affection or ill will. These are the rudiments of a sustainable democracy. We will look at how we can get our democracy to grow. We will set up a rule of law action group that will not only superintend over these affairs, and the inadequacies of adherence to rule of law principles, but we will also have a very virile and dynamic legislative advocacy group that will also be liaising with the National Assembly.
I went on some online platforms and shared with some people that follow me on those online platforms that I would be speaking to the presidential candidates, and I asked them to send in questions. One of the feedback that I got was that some people said, Mr. Adesina is not an activist lawyer. That's how some people put it. That you're not radical in your public engagements. That's all. I should ask how you hope to bring back that time when the NBA was respected.
I wouldn't know how much those people know about the past of Nigerian Bar Association.
And these were from lawyers.
Yes. I said that advisedly because I can recall, without looking into the books, what some of us have been able to contribute along with others into the dynamism of Nigerian Bar Association in the past. I agree with the person that Dele Adesina is not a radical. If you must pigeonhole me into an ideological camp, I will say I am a realist, ready and willing to confront a situation as they come. If there is a need to identify with radical tendencies and radical quotes, you will find Dele Adesina there. As young as 7 years at the bar, I was very visible with Femi Falana and others in the administration of Alao Akabashonu, Chief Wole Olanipekun, a past General Secretary, Afroyinka Fayokun. We were all there between 1987 and 1989. We were there. Between 1991 and 1992, when Mrs. Priscilla Kuye was president of Nigerian Bar Association, we saw the enthronement of rule of law at the mountaintop, if I can use that language. Because here was a situation where people, radical elements, student union leaders, were detained under Decree 2. And Nigerian Bar Association took on the business and said, no, this must not happen. It started in Ikeja here, and I was the secretary of that branch at the time. It was the struggle of the bar that led to the freedom of those people. I was part of the struggle. None of the other two candidates, can be described by any word of imagination as a radical. None of the other two. And if anybody has a history of progressive bar among the three, it is me, Dele Additional.
Perhaps the greatest challenge facing the legal profession today is how to tackle issues of unemployment, lack of opportunities, poor pay, inadequate training, facing plenty of young lawyers in the country. What have you done in the past to tackle these problems, these issues, and what are you going to do as president of the bar?
Thank you very much. You have cataloged so many problems and rolled them into one. You talked about legal education. You talked about training. You talked about unemployment.
You talked about poor pay of young lawyers.
You see, these are all life issues. Unfortunately, as far back as when I was General Secretary of the Bar, we have focused on some of these issues. The problem we have had over the years is that of lack of continuity. And do I say lack of progress, progressive review?
From successive leadership.
Yes, successive leadership. Now, talking about poor pay, I was in an ESCO in 2002, where a member of the ESCO was earning 2,500 naira as pay monthly. And that informed us about the need to do something. I remember when we started the effort, some individuals, even in the ESCO, believed that all this effort you are putting in to say you want to put in place a remuneration, a reward system, how are you going to enforce it? They were pessimistic. But people like us are incurable optimists. I would prefer to do something rather than explain why I didn't do anything. So we set about it. We empowered the Welfare Committee under the second Vice President to look into the welfare of young lawyers. And they came up with a report dividing the nation into three categories: Zone 1, Zone 2, and Zone 3. And they proposed different payment reward for different zones. My candidature is going to use the experience gathered over the years, the successes of the Bar Association over the years, the failures of the Bar Association over the years, to bring a positive change. And this change is going to come from two main responsibilities I identified earlier. In terms of corporate social responsibility, I'm going to stand for the defense and the protection of the rule of law. I am going to bring the same knowledge with which we were able to put in place mandatory continuing legal education, the same idea with which we thought it wise to bring what we saw in the International Bar Association into Nigerian Bar Association by establishing section of business law and section of legal practice, right? I'm going to bring those experiences to bear and address the problems facing our members, with particular reference to the junior members of the bar.
There are a lot of people who believe that senior lawyers, especially senior advocates, are the ones who bring the profession into disrepute through some of their actions. How are you going to ensure that there's discipline among senior lawyers? Because they say that senior lawyers find it difficult to say the truth to themselves.
That is not true.
So what are you going to do?
That is not true. In the UK, when it comes to matters of discipline, there's no difference between seniors and juniors. The rules of professional conduct is not for juniors, it's not for seniors alone. I know senior lawyers that have been sanctioned by legal practitioners disciplinary committee.
But they are few and far between.
Yeah, that's why I said but. You see, the character of any organization is a function of the character of leadership of that organization. All right? So, you need some level of pro-action, of activity. I don't want to use the language activism, because many people believe that activism is confrontation and confrontation and confrontation. No. Activism can be constructive engagement. All right? I don't see, under my leadership by the grace of God, a senior lawyer running foul of the rules of professional conduct and get away with it. I would like to see to it that an example is made of him or her.
Like every political contest, the NBA election is full of intrigues and controversies.
Yes.
One that has your name written on it is this endorsement by the Egbe Amofin. And I'm just wondering, like a lot of people, why do you need this endorsement to win?
I, as Dele Additional, by my pedigree and contributions to the Nigerian Bar Association, I am well able to run and win the election of Nigerian Bar Association any day, anytime. That does not derogate from the fact that if there is a system, that system has to be followed. All these things have a history behind it. If the office is zoned to you, to R1 lawyers, it will be unheard of to say that R1 lawyers should have no rights in looking at as many people as may want to contest and say we prefer you to go now, go and represent us, and then someone else will represent later. It was a very ingenious way of reducing the confrontation, of reducing the contest. Don't forget, this is a professional body. You said intrigues and what have you, like you have in political. It is a disservice to the profession when you experience intrigues in the election of a professional body. How many of these have you had in the Nigerian Medical Association? They have an association, they have presidents. And these intrigues have divided the Bar Association much more than ever before.
First, I want you to react to some allegations in some quarters that the Egbe Amofin process was supervised by your in-law, Chief Wole Olanipekun, and that it is not transparent. What would you say to that?
I will try as much as possible to answer this question without emotion. But I feel very bad that lawyers will go to this mundane level to advance a cause they themselves know has no reasonable content. And do I say this? After 2014, everybody thought what happened in 2014 was a shame to us as Yoruba people. We couldn't talk to ourselves. 3 of us eminently qualified to be president of the Bar Association, and 3 of us eminently lost out. After that crisis in 2014, Egbe Amofin went into the limbo. And it was members of Nigerian Bar Association from the Southwest, including branch chairmen, I can mention names, and leaders of the bar, who were going to Chief Wole Olanipekun to say, you are the deputy leader of Egbe Amofin under Chief Bamidele Aiku, SAN, of blessed memory. Please, we started this thing and other forums copied us. Now their own is going on well. Do something to resuscitate the body. And he conveyed the first meeting. Most of the conversation at that meeting took place in Yoruba for people who wanted to pour out their minds. And they fixed, at that meeting, they resolved that once beaten, twice shy. A situation where we are 6 states and we lost out to 2 states, our brothers in the Midwest, it's not good enough for us. That please, when we enter into negotiation with them, but this time around, as many of you as may be interested, go and show your interest. But we resolved we are going to pick one candidate. Was it Olanipekun that took that decision? The answer is no. And at that very meeting, they fixed another meeting for October 26th. There was no other private invitation to any private individuals. And by October 26th, we were all in Ibadan. And 4 of us, again, these leaders were there on the high table. Shifa Jomale was there. Felix Fabombe was there. Mr. Abiodun, over 80 years old, was there. They were all there. Mrs. Prislakuye was there on the high table. And on that day, it was announced that everybody interested in the position of NBA president should signify their interest. 4 of us signified. Everybody realized that Wole Olanipekun was on the high table when they signified. Everybody realized that he was on the high table when we individually undertook to abide by the decision of the committee.
Nobody raised any objection.
Everybody knew he was on the high table when they said that we were constituting a committee, not of 3 people, as it used to be in the past, not of 5 people, as before, but a committee of 25 chairmen of each branch, of the branches, that they will all come together and constitute themselves into a screening committee. These chairmen constitute the leadership of their respective branches. Under the leadership of Chief Niyi Akintola, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Who are the 4 people? Myself, Dele Adesina, Muyiwa Akimboro, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, past General Secretary of the Bar, Mr. Wuni Yalabi, past National Legal Advisor of the Bar, and Dr. Tunde Ajibade, SAN. The 4 of us. The first question they asked from all the 4 people was whether we were ready to abide or whether we have any objection to the committee. They didn't ask us jointly. One by one, we answered we have no objection. They said, one by one, do we undertake to abide by the decision of the House? Again, one by one, we answered that yes, we will. After the proceedings of that day, it's unfortunate that nobody recorded the proceedings of that meeting, because all these afterthoughts, these are clear what lawyers call afterthoughts when you lose something.
Welcome back. Apart from Mr. Adesina, 2 other candidates have been cleared by the Electoral Committee of the Nigerian Bar Association to participate in the forthcoming elections of July 24th. Next week on the program, God willing, we'll talk with Dr. Babatunde Ajibade, SAN. So if you have questions you'd like me to put across to him, please send them via any of our social media handles. I would love to read from you. And just before we go, let's bring you a recap of some of the top legal stories we tracked at the courts.
We begin with politics. It's no longer news that the candidates of the All Progressives Congress, APC, and that of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, for the Edo governorship elections have emerged. But before then, there were a series of court cases in quick succession surrounding especially the PDP primaries. A federal high court in Port Harcourt, Rivers State, refused to bar the Edo State Governor Godwin Obaseki from participating in the PDP primaries, which later held on Thursday, June the 25th. The suit was instituted by one of the governorship candidates, Omoriege Ogbede Ihama, who challenged Mr. Obaseki's participation on the ground that he did not purchase the party's forms within the stipulated window. In another suit, Justice Okiaya Ine of the Ekpoma Division of the Edo State High Court restrained the PDP from excluding Governor Godwin Obaseki and other cleared candidates from participating in the primaries. The primaries have since been held, and Governor Godwin Obaseki have emerged the candidate of the PDP, while Osagie Ize-Iyamo emerged the candidate of the APC. Away from Edo State, a 5-man panel of the Supreme Court headed by Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Tanko Mohammed, has dismissed the appeal filed by Mr. Abubakar Ibrahim challenging the candidacy of Mr. Musa Wada as the governorship candidate of the PDP in the 2019 governorship election held in Kogi State. In a unanimous judgment delivered by Justice Amina Uge, the Apex Court affirmed Wada's candidacy on the ground that Mr. Ibrahim failed to prove allegations of illegal thumbprinting. For this failure, the court held that the appeal is lacking in merit and had become a mere academic exercise. The controversy trailing the short list of judges for appointment is not going away anytime soon, as a group of like-minded senior lawyers under the aegis of the Justice Reform Project, JRP, has asked a federal high court sitting in Abuja to restrain President Muhammadu Buhari from appointing as judges the 21 persons recently recommended to him by the National Judicial Council, NJC. The group is also urging the court to grant a perpetual injunction stopping the president from approving the appointment of the 21 persons as judges of the High Court of the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, having failed to meet conditions for such appointment. Apart from the president, JRP has listed the NJC, the Judicial Service Committee of the FCT, the Attorney General of the Federation, and the 21 nominated persons who include magistrates and lawyers as defendants in the suit. JRP also wants the court to decide whether the NJC or the Judicial Service Committee of the FCT has the power to recommend for appointment as judges any person who neither meets the criteria nor satisfy the conditions laid down in the extant guidelines or procedural rules for the appointment of judicial officers in Nigeria. The suit has been assigned to Justice Okonabang, who has fixed the 10th of July for hearing.
And this is where we adjourn till next week. Don't forget that you can find this episode of the program and past episodes on our YouTube channel. After viewing, be sure to leave us a feedback. I am Shola Sheyeli. Thank you for watching.